Hey guys, welcome back to episode number 8, and we want to continue with our inventory system, and we also want to add stackable items. Because when we pick something up like a weapon or a key, this is perfectly fine. Or you have something like a first aid spray, a herbal item. But when you pick up ammo, you need to have a number. So you have one slot for ammo, but this slot contains, for example, like 17 bullets or 12 bullets. Yeah, let's just start and I will guide you through it. So we have this item cube. This is a placeholder and we can just continue to use this as like a single item. But in order to have also like a stackable item, let's just create another child and we call this one BP item. Let's get the donut. So this is just a placeholder. Of course, we are going to replace those items later, or we create another child, and then we're gonna have real items, of course. But for now, this is just a placeholder to see functionality. First of all, go to add, if it's not in there for you, and add a static mesh. This is pretty important, and put the static mesh here. This should not be a child of the pickup collision, but just a child of default scene root. So make sure that you have a static mesh here, just in case if you don't have it. Okay, and then let's just get your placeholder item. In my case, this is the donut. And you can also go here and rename this to donut. This description is, this is a stackable donut. And of course we need for our inventory the item image, which is right here. In my case, let's compile and save. So now you have the item name, description and item image. Let's go back here to the static mesh. Once you add the static mesh here, this is pretty important that you add this here and not in the blueprint itself. And let's get the, I believe this was a red. So we just take the red so it will fit with our inventory thumbnail. Okay, so and just compile and save. Now we need to add a couple of variables. So for adding variables, go out of the child and go back to your master item, not the donut and not the cube. The master item, as I told you before, this is where you have all your variables and all your logic. So let's click on the plus. And I always like to start with a Boolean. For example, is item stackable? And question mark. We are not done yet by creating variables. We want also an integer, and this integer is called current stack. This is a variable we will also add into our inventory slot, and they will be connected. Okay, so current stack, and we also have the same variable, which is also an integer, as a max stack, and this is it. Compile and save. Besides the BP master item, we also need to go into the WB inventory slot. And let's add a text, so it's another text here, and we put this inside the canvas, so it will be down here, and we call this one stack amount, for example, and make sure this is a variable by enabling this one on the right hand side. And then we can just make sure that this anchor stays on the top left. And let's just give it a value like position X should be maybe 48. I believe I have something like 115 or something like this. Maybe just a little more, 116. And the size, let's do 100 is enough. And the size Y should be 30. So now you have these values. What's also pretty important is you can give it like a nice green color, something like this. Okay, so, and also this is a text, but this is something like 17 or like this value. You can see this is not really aligned properly. So what we need to do, let's do 50, for example. And you can see the justification should be aligned text right. This means if we pick up like 500 items, you see that this stays inside our slot and will be aligned properly. This anchor is on the top left. It's aligned at justification is on the right side. And you can give it, if you want to, you can give it under appearance a color. In my case, it's just a slight green color. And the text is just an example. It doesn't really matter. But I just type in 50 so you can see what's going on. Compile and save. And now when we go to our WB inventory here, let's get our slot. So we have a preview. And you can see, okay, this is fine. So let's delete this. Okay. Now, when we go back to our stack amount, this is pretty important. It is a variable. Okay, good. We go into our WB inventory. Let's just leave the designer tab and go into the graph. You can see the fupdate function here on the top left, but we need to add 2 more variables also here. So click on the plus for the variable, and let's call this one max slots, and this one will be the item slot WB inventory slot. So this is the widget for our slots. We get the object reference, and down here go to array. Let me just type this again, max slots, and another variable will be called WB inventory slot. And now you think like, why is he adding 2? Because this one is a single. You have this W inventory slot as an array, and you have this one as a single object reference. Compile and save. What's pretty important here, when you click on slots, the array, you should add 1. Now let's see our fupdate. We need to add more logic to it, because this of course is not enough. Before we basically make a check if this item is a stackable item, we should enhance our slot widget. So let me just straighten this one and also this image. And regarding the image, let's just press Alt and click on this image here, because I think we don't need that. We don't need to cast from our item directly to the slot. So when we double click on the fupdate slot, let's just do this. Now we are inside our inventory slot. You can see this one is still connected, and let's just deconnect it by Alt click as well. And let's just remove this input. But what we can do instead is we get an input and we get the BP master item. And let's just get the class reference and just call it held item. And from here, get class default. So we are just doing it inside the slot and not in our WB inventory. And from there, you can get the image. Now, let's go back to our WB inventory. Let me just drag it here so it's more organized for me, because I always want to have the inventory and then the slot on the right hand side. So now, let's just get this one and get rid of it. And out from the array, so when we pick something up, we can get this reference and just connect that one up. Okay, sweet. So now we get this WB inventory slot and set this one, put it here, connect that one up. So now this W inventory slot we just created has now a reference every time we pick something up, and we get the max slots. So we get our array of our slots, and we just add this one. So we add this particular one, this one here, to our array. So this one needs to be connected as well. So make sure that this one is connected as well. So we can just update, continue to update, and then add a child uniform grid. Otherwise it's not gonna work, of course. Compile and save that. Now we need to create another function. Let's go into functions and press on the plus. Check item stack is what I call this. And now we get our max slots. Out of this array, we do for each loop. Connect that one up. We need to check if this is valid. So is the slot valid, basically? So is there something inside already? When we pick something up, connect this one to the is valid. So we have a reference to our slot. Out of this array element, let's get held item. So we have specific info about our slot, what's inside, so what kind of item is inside. And when we go to check item stack, let's also do an input. And this input is BP master item as well. Class reference, and we call it also held item. And now you can just drag from here and say equal, because this is our first check. If this is equal with this item, and out of this held item get class defaults, is it stackable? So is this the same item? When we check if this item is already in our inventory, we can just add a branch and say, okay, this one is stackable, this one is the same item, so it's already inside our inventory. We connect that one up, and we need to do another check. So from our loop, we get the current stack, which we didn't create yet, so I'm sorry for this. When we go to our WB inventory slot, we create a current stack as well. So this one is basically connected later with our current stack we did create in our BP master item. And when we go back, we can just get current stack. Now, is the current stack less than the max stack? If so, we can stack our item and not create a slot. So this means yes, it's fine, it's less than the max stack. So instead of adding another slot into our inventory, we don't want that. We just increment our stack, our current stack, by 1. Every time this loop fires, we just increment. This is the wrong one, sorry. We just increment this. Okay, fine. After this, we can finally update slot. So you can see the slot, he's not finding it. Why? Because we need to drag it from here. This is our slot basically, which gets looped. Update slot. So now we can use this function again because we want to update our slot. And the held item here, just put it here. And make sure that this one is straight. Okay. Compile and save. So let me just see if this makes sense here. So the item here and here is equal. It's stackable at the same time. Yes, then we can just add, instead of adding a slot, we can just add the number and keep one slot. This is basically the stuff we do here. And let's just add a return node. And the return node should have an output, and the output should be a boolean. And let's just call this one is in inventory. Yes. So we just add an integer, a number, instead of adding a slot. And we can just copy this one, this return node, disable this one, the second one, and we just put this on completed. So this one is not in our inventory. So we can just continue from here. So when it's false, we can just go into our fupdate. So let's close this function here. So we are back in our fupdate. And now this function we just created, we can implement it. We are doing this by just getting space over here. And then we need a branch, of course. If this one is false, so I will tell you in a minute what is false. We just get a little more space, like so, and make this one straight. We get this function, we check the stack, and connect that one up as well. And let's make a pure function. So by clicking on this one, make a pure function. And now make also sure that the held item is connected, and we put this into our branch. So if this is in our inventory, just do what's inside here. So we don't continue. If this is in our inventory, we are not doing this, which is basically creating another slot. Because we want to have one slot is fine for us. So if this one is in our inventory, it's true, we don't continue, but we just do what's inside here. So basically what's inside here is we just cast this one depending on how much our current stack is. So if our current stack is, for example, 17, so 17 bullets, for example, we pick that one up, and this one gets fired. This loop is like 17 times. For now, of course not, because we will implement this loop also in our grab item function. But then, depending on the current stack, this gets fired several times, and just adding at the current stack, just increasing every time this loops. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth. So let's go inside this update slot here as well. Let's just make this also a little more cleaner. So what we need to do, let's also just set this one. So promote to a variable, right click here, promote to variable, connect that one up. And then we get the current stack. And from the current stack, let's get to text integer. We also need the stack amount. The stack amount is here. Get this one. And from this, out of this stack amount, set text. So this is inside the widget here, set text. We also need a branch. Sometimes we have a visible amount in our slot and sometimes not, because if we pick an item up and it's just one single item, we have no reason to make the stack visible, okay? So the current stack, let's get a greater. So if it's greater than 1, when we just pick up one single item, if it's greater than 1, we connect that one up. Then we set the text to our current stack, which is basically the number we have in our stack. So this one gets updated. But if this current stack is not greater than 1, so it can only be 1 when it's inside our inventory, it can only be 1, then we just get the stack amount and the set text, and we just leave it blank. So that's it. And this one maybe straight. Okay. So I hope this makes sense. Compile and save. And now let's go into our AC inventory. This is our grab function and we need to change it. So we have two checks. Let's get those nodes, drag it over here. And we need the current stack. And we also need is item stackable. So is the item stackable? We check this one. So this is the next check. If it's false, if it's not stackable, let's just continue to do this. So this is quite easy. This is just the regular stuff. But now this is important. If this item is stackable, the current stack has a value of something like more than 1, of course. We want to loop this, or we need to loop this. But in this case, we use a for loop, not each, but a for loop. Set the index to 1, because we start counting from 1. And the current stack is the last index. This means if our current stack, for example, is 17, this last index will be 17. The loop body will be counted from 1 to 17, so 17 times we will fire something. And what we want to fire is basically our f add item to inventory. And of course we need to connect the item as well. And also let me get this straight. Okay, and when it's completed, when the loop body is completed with the counting here, after completed, we just go not here, no, we go inside here, because we are done. So I hope this makes sense as well. Then compile and save. Also, you need to make sure that when you go into your W inventory slot, this current stack should be set to 1 and not 0. And also when you go to your master item, no, let's not go to our master item. Let's go to our stackable item. So in this case, we use the donut as our stackable item. You have this current stack, set this, for example, in my case, 17. The max stack do 50. So when we exceed 50, we will just create another slot and count from there. Compile and save. You can see held item 0. This is not really correct. In my case, he did held item 0 because I already had an held item before. In this case, I just delete this, and of course I need the held item. So probably you won't have this mistake, because when you set this held item, in case you remember, right click, promote to variable, then you're gonna have a held item, and then you're fine, so you're not gonna have this mistake. So now let's go back here. So just make sure that this held item out of this loop here is the same variable you have promoted here. This is the same, okay? Let's see our master item here. Not really the master item. Let's see our donut. Let's open that one up. Current stack is 17, so this is fine. Max stack is Is item stackable? Of course it is. Compile. Okay. We need to set it here. Okay, let's do it again. And now we should, I believe, we should have a stack. Yes, we have. And when I pick this one up, yes, we have 34. And when I pick this one up, we have 1, and we should have a separate one. Yes. So this is how we can have stacks. Yeah, I think this is it for this video here. Just make sure that everything is exactly like I did. Just before I end this, I will just reevaluate for you guys. So just to make sure that you don't need to look around and search for tiny mistakes. So out of the grab item, we have the 2 checks we did before. But then the item to pick up, we just did the add item to inventory directly. But in this case, we need to check out of our item to pick up the current stack. The item is stackable. So if the item is stackable is true, we need to do something else. And you can get this by creating all those variables inside your BP master item. So we did create the item is stackable, current stack and max stack. And then also you make sure, not in your master item, but in the item you want to have stacked, you open this one. In my case, it's the children, it's the child called donut. And here you need to make sure that the item is stackable, and also you need to make sure that the current stack is at least 2. And the max stack, you can set the max stack how you want. This is pretty crucial. And then when we go back here, if this condition is true, the current stack we set to 17 in our donut goes from first index 1 to last index, in this case 17, so it fires off 17 times. So this is basically then the same stuff like here, adding a single item. So here it's not stackable, adding a single item, but if it's stackable, we just firing this event, this particular event, we fire this off several times depending on our stack amount. So when we go inside here, this didn't change. This is the same like we have in our previous video. But here inside our WB inventory, F update, we implemented a check. Like this is a pure function. So we did create a function, and when you clicked on this function, you can see that when you click on pure, that this is basically like a simple check. So when we check all the logic inside our pure function, which is basically, let's open this one up so you can see it again. So before we can create a slot, basically a new single slot in our inventory, we want to see all of our slots, and we loop them, and we see, is this slot already valid? Yes, if it is already valid, there must be already a slot, of course. If this held item is the same like the held item from our slot, if this is the same and also at the same time it's stackable item, so yes, it is a stackable item, then yes, it's true, then we do add 1 integer to our current stack. So we add 1 every single time this loop gets fired. We update every single time. And then when we update our slot every single time, we make sure that this held item is set. We can see our image, and we just take our current stack and see if this current stack is greater than 1. If this is greater than 1, so if this is true, we set the text to this current stack, which is basically, I mean, yes, it's confusing, it's misleading. Why is it like 2 text? But this is basically converting the integer to a text. And the text basically in this case is not really a text, but it's a number. So I know it's confusing, but we just need to convert this integer value into a text value in order to read the text. And the text is, in this case, yeah, a number. If it's not, so if it's not greater than 1, so then leave it blank. Don't do anything here. So we don't set a stack amount. This should be it when we go back to our f update. So I did explain to you again this one. So if it's not in our inventory, we're done, or it's not a stackable item. And then we just create another slot. And now let's do another check. Maybe let's do 3 just in case. 17, 34 and 51. You can see 51. Let's do even more so you can see that this is working. 17, 34, 51 and yeah, 68. So now in the next video, I think we should implement a pistol and the bullets when we have our bullets in our inventory. So we will just replace this placeholder item with actual bullets, and we will make a reload function. So we can only shoot depending on our amount we have inside our inventory, and every single time we shoot, this will also get an update. So we're basically wasting bullets. So I hope this was quite interesting, and yeah, see you guys in the next episode.